Hi guys, this is Finding Your People. I am Berman Michael, and I really want to have a good conversation with you guys about what exactly it means to find your people on the Instagram platform. Now, I don't want to bore you with a whole bunch of details and stats about things that aren't relevant, but what I do want to share with you is specifics on how you guys can make content and your engagement stand out on the Instagram platform and ultimately lead to you guys getting more appointments off of Instagram. Now, all of us want that. You guys all listening to this want that. So, strap up. Let's do this. Let's talk about how to find your people on the Instagram platform. And most likely, this is not going to be something you've ever heard before. So, what we do know in the real estate industry is that the root cause or the root problem right now is this one big word known as loyalty. So, if we know that, how do we create it, or how do we create that and solve this lack thereof loyalty problem? And in my opinion, the answer to that question is building your community. Now, there is this special thing that I'm about to share with you guys that I personally have done a lot of research on, spent a lot of time studying and really understanding. But the moral of the story is that we have to build our community on the Instagram platform. I really believe that so many people are focused on just being anything to everyone. And instead of that, I encourage you to take this as permission to be exactly who you need to be for your people. Find your people on the platform. I always say that if today I decided to go sell real estate full time and that's all I did, who would I be prospecting? Who would I want to be talking to the most on the Instagram space or in the Instagram space, or really just on social media in general? And the answer to that, for those of you guys who have listened to a handful of my episodes, you'll know my people are the military community that are really into fitness. So I am a competitive CrossFitter. I run a lot. My husband is also a marathon runner. He is getting ready to hopefully qualify for Boston later this year. So we are ingrained here in this military community. My husband is prior, now works for the military, and we're just in an environment where there's a lot of military families. However, our ideal family or our ideal client would be someone that is into fitness if I were to say that's who I wanted to help buy and sell. Now, does that niche down, or the process of niching down, does that hurt me in any capacity? And in my opinion, the answer is absolutely not. It truly makes me that person in my space. It actually makes me more attractive in many cases to people outside of that specific niche because they realize how specialized and how intentional I am. And if I take that to how I prospect on the platform and what does that look like, that's how I will build my community, and the actionable steps of do this, do that, then you end up with conversion is probably for another episode. But the tactical aspect of this is I want you guys to be able to build your community on the Instagram platform. And it starts with what we post, right? So it starts with how we produce content and how we share content with our audience, because that ultimately is how we start that process of building our community, which then in turn becomes the foundation for how we then prospect. So if we are trying to actively have new conversations with people that we don't know in our messages every single day, well, it has to then in turn tie back to our content. Because if we are in one-to-one conversation with someone and they are listening or they're reading messages that we're sending to them and we're having this great back and forth, they in turn will then click on our Instagram profiles and go look at our content. And the question then becomes, are we who we say we are? And that is really, really important to understand, that as you build your community with the intent of creating this loyalty factor, your content has to mirror how you talk in your messages. So if you are going to be actively outbound prospecting, meaning intentionally sending conversations or starting conversations with people that you do not know through the Instagram platform, your content is the foundation to how you do that. Knowing that you can't do one without the other. You can't be all business in the content, all personal in the DMs. You can't be all personal on the content side and all business in the DMs, or vice versa. They have to be synonymous with one another. This then ties into, you have to be able to and be willing to post personal content, knowing that that then creates that foundation for how we prospect. Why? Because the personal content we're sharing, the things we like doing, the things we do outside of work, the things that we enjoy doing with our families or with our friends, that all becomes the foundation for our prospecting, in the sense that these are the conversations we enjoy having. These are the things that we could talk about all day, every day, right? I could talk about my training for running, or I could talk about my CrossFit world, or hell, I could talk about hole in the wall coffee shops all day long because they're things that I really, really enjoy. I could talk about swimming forever. I swam competitively for 20 years before getting into the CrossFit space and transitioning my physical career from one sport to the next. So these are things that I could talk about all day. And therefore, I post about them all the time because those are people, or those are what makes me me. And that is what people will connect with. So really, really important. But how do we do that? What is the first step that you guys can take right now to ditch the talking head video? Or I'm sorry, to create the community and really start to build it? And the answer is to ditch the talking head videos. So what the heck do I mean by that? Now, on Instagram, many of us probably would agree that we just open our phones and record videos staring at it all the time. We don't really necessarily have an intentional strategy for how we storytell or how we share information, other than, hey, there's this specific detail or metric that came out, or data point that came out, or the National Association of Realtors released this thing, the conforming loan limits changed. Whatever the detail might be, a common one is the market update in our areas, right? But when we go to post that content, we typically just record a talking head video. We're just holding our phone recording, we hit stop, we post it. Now, why am I telling you this, or why am I bringing it up? Because intuitively, we don't even know that we are doing it, right? So what happens is we will go and we will see that John Doe down the road, who happens to be a high producing agent in our area, is posting a video about this thing. So therefore, I'm going to post it too, right? That's what we tell ourselves. Oh, well, if Joe's successful or John is successful and they're posting that, well, then that means that I should. And that, in there lies the problem. That is exactly how we actually degrade the loyalty aspect. And we slowly, over a long sustained period of time, will lose our relationships because all we're doing is just pumping out the same content as everybody else. So we're just adding to the white noise. We're not standing out. We're not creating that top of mind factor. Now, many years ago, I honestly believe that if you were on Instagram at all and you were doing it even half well, you were staying top of mind. Fast forward to today, that is not the case, right? There are so many people on the Instagram platform, most whom are doing it very wrong. So how do we stand out? How do we create the opportunity for people to say, yep, this is exactly who I want to work with. This is my person. I feel connected to them. I enjoy them. I like them. And in my opinion, the answer to how we create loyalty, how we build our community, is we ditch the talking head videos. And instead, I want to share with you guys a really interesting statistic. I promised I wouldn't do a lot of them, but I do want to do one of them because this statistic, 63% versus 5%, is one that I think is really, really important to talk about. And what are these numbers, right? So first and foremost, I think it's important to understand, what is the 63% number? What is the 5% number? How do they relate to each other? And ultimately, I think that's a place where I want you guys to understand that there was importance or value in how or why I'm sharing these metrics with you. So 63% is the percentage of people that say that they remembered stories, over the 5%, which is someone who said that they could recall any statistic or data point from a presentation that they heard. So if you guys are familiar with a really good friend of mine, Renee Rodriguez, I've spent a lot of time in his world. I've been able to, luckily, been coached personally by him for quite some time. And the cool thing about this process, as I've been going through it, is I've learned about this concept called neural coupling. So that's what I really want to share with you guys is, since I met Renee, almost 8 months ago, and the amount of time I've been able to spend with him personally through his coaching, through his events, he's personally invited me to a mastermind recently, I've honestly dove face first into this concept of neural coupling and how it can completely transform the content that we produce. Now, how does that relate to me, right? Or how does that relate to what I'm coaching you guys? It is truly, if I believe that if I'm telling you to believe that ditching the talking head videos is the solution, then what is the action that we can take to then not do that? And in my opinion, the answer is all in the videos that we produce. So it's through this concept of neural coupling. So if 63% of people are saying that if there was a story told by the person creating the content, that they would remember it, and only 5% of people are saying that they would ever remember that video, if there was a if it was or I'm sorry, that they would only remember a data point from that video. So again, you're talking about two massively different numbers, right? 63% of people say that if a presenter or someone who's giving a presentation tells a story or uses storytelling as part of it, they will remember something from the presentation, as opposed to only 5% of people will say that they would ever remember any data point or metric that that same presenter would share. So we have to then tie in this concept of neural coupling so that we are now telling more stories in our content. So, what is neural coupling? I think is a good way to start. But neural coupling refers to a phenomenon where two individual brain activities become synchronized when they are engaged in effective communication. So, to boil that all down simply, when a speaker tells a story, the listener's brain activity mirrors that of the speaker, creating a shared mental experience. So, they start to think about their own scenarios. They start to think about their own stories that they can recall from when they maybe were younger or past experiences. So the sensory perception, our emotional response, our ability to connect one to one with the person becomes dramatically stronger. So how does neural coupling enhance content consumption, or how does it help us with content consumption on Instagram so that when people are consuming content, they consume ours? There's really two big ways. Number one is the way we storytell, right? So stories are inherently more engaging than raw data because they activate multiple parts of our brain. So a well-told story can evoke emotions, can create very vivid imagery. It can really stimulate the listener's imagination and making them feel connected to the content, makes the content more memorable and impactful. Now, the second piece to that is the emotional connection that we have. When we do a good job at telling stories, the users can hopefully connect to that and then it will resonate with them. Their brains will then mirror the emotion of that storyteller, and the emotional connection fosters that deeper engagement with the content, leading to an increase in conversations, comments, story replies, all of the details or all of the metrics, I should say, that we consider engagement on the Instagram platform. So if we want to get more comments on our content, we want to get more story replies to the content we put in stories, we want to get more DMs, we have to appeal to the emotional side of someone's brain, right? How do we then appeal to the emotional side of someone's brain? We do that through storytelling in our content. So when we are talking about specific things, if we boil this all the way down to, okay, well, great, Michelle, now what do I actually post videos about? There's another video or another episode I've done here with you guys where I talk about value series as it relates to this. Value series is one topic divided into 5 sub questions. Each of the 5 sub questions is its own video of 40 to 60 seconds. Now, that series, how do you come up with the topics for that series? That is in another episode as well. But the reality of it is we are sharing passions and we are coupling our passions with our pain points that we solve for our clients, or with the pain points that we solve for our clients. So when you are creating that series, you are building an analogy between your passion and your pain point that you are solving for your ideal clients. And that in turn helps us tell more stories. Now, the process of doing this, the process of creating value series in this way, the way that I've taught for years and years, and the way that I myself personally build content that then in turn relates to this concept of neural coupling, is that the average video watch time on Instagram across the board, regardless of what type of content you're creating, regardless of what industry you're in, is about 3 to 6 seconds if you're lucky, meaning most videos that get posted average 3 to 6 second watch time. In this process, if you guys execute this process, I personally, my average watch time is 11 to 14 seconds. My clients are closer to 12 to 15 seconds. So people are crushing this as far as being able to lead from the front with a hook related to the story that you're going to tell, or the piece of the content that you really want people to resonate with in that hook is so important in order to start the video successfully, so that we can get them to that watch time. And then obviously to keep them through the remainder of the video, that's where the storytelling aspect really comes in. But you sort of reverse engineer the story into what that hook looks like. So long story short, if we peel the onion layers all the way back, I'll end here with this and say that if you want to create loyalty in the content that you are producing, or just in the business that you're building as it relates to social content, or really just in general, right? The root problem of not being able to receive that loyalty is that we are not building our community. We are not talking to our people. So if you produce content in the lane of talking to your people, you will in turn build more community. Now, how do you do that? It is through the art of storytelling, that concept that we are talking about in this particular episode being on neural coupling, knowing that 63% of people will remember a presentation that was shared if there was storytelling involved, and only 5 people would ever recall a metric or a data point from that presentation, even if it was the same exact presenter. So important to understand that when we talk about things that we love, when we talk about passions and things that we really enjoy, and we couple that with our pain points that we solve for our clients, we can then tell stories. And those stories that we create is how we create this following of people that are loyal to us, and the community that we're able to build are people that are really, really in tune with who we are and what we do. And we then create the solution of I'm staying top of mind, which at the end of the day, in a very oversaturated Instagram marketplace of real estate agents, your only job should be to focus on how can I create more top of mindness? How can I stand out among the white noise of everybody else on the Instagram platform?